Pop quiz! In this sentence below, which words are the adjectives? In case you've forgotten your 5th grade English class, a simplified definition of an adjective is just a word that describes a noun. In this sentence, black describes cat, and big and brown describe the house. Adjectives in Korean have the same definition, but are grammatically used a little bit differently than how we use them in English. In Korean, it matters if an adjective comes before or after a noun, so our practice will be broken into a few videos, but don't worry, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a lot of rules to memorize, it's just going to be a lot of practice. And we're also going to cover a very common irregular, the piep irregular. In today's video, we're only going to cover how to put adjectives in front of nouns, which means we're only going to focus on an adjective's adjective form as opposed to its dictionary form, which I'll explain as we get going. I'm not entirely sure if dictionary form and adjective form are the accepted technical terms, but it's what we're going to call them today just to make it a little bit easier. Feel free to scroll around with the timestamps below, and as always, please pause anytime you need more time to think, and let's go ahead and get started.
Today, it's time for some perfect, amazing, incredible, and spicy adjectives, also known as descriptive verbs. The reason they're called descriptive verbs when referring to Korean grammar is because in Korean, adjectives function like verbs. You'll see what I mean in a future video, but for today, let's start easy with how to put an adjective in front of a noun. This would be something in English like big box, expensive bag, or cold weather. Let's take the word small. When you first look up the word small in the dictionary or in a word list, you'll see it as either 작다 or 작은. The form with either 니은 or 은 is the form that will go before a noun. And this is the form that we're going to focus on today. But let's say that you first learn a word in its 타 form, which we'll call the verb form for today. In order to turn an adjective's verb form into this form, you will first drop 타, which leaves us with the stem. If the stem ends with a vowel, you will add 니은, and if it ends with a consonant, you will add 은. Because our stem here ends with a consonant, we will add 은 to get this form right here, 작은. And now it's ready to be put in front of a noun. How would you say small bag? 작은 가방. How about small hat? 작은 모자. And lastly, small cat. 작은 고양이. Let's take a minute to practice turning adjectives from their dictionary or verb form into this adjective form. Let's start with 크다, to be big. Notice that I wrote to be here. I'll explain why in the next video, but for now, just think of it as the word big. Remember that you are going to first drop 타, then if the stem ends with a vowel, you will add 니은, and if it ends with a consonant, you will add 은. So what do you think for 크다? 크다 becomes 큰. Alright, go ahead and try the rest on your own. Next we've got 작다 from earlier, to be small. I'll give about 5 seconds, but pause if you need more time. 작은. 비싸다, to be expensive. 비싸다. 비싼. And its opposite, 싸다, to be cheap. 싸다. 싼. 이상하다, to be strange or weird. 이상하다. 이상한. And 5 more before we move on. 높다, to be high. 높다. 높은. 낮다. To be low. 낮다. 낮은. 좋다. To be good. 좋다. 좋은. I found this one a little hard when I was first learning, but hiet is a consonant, so we will add un. But the pronunciation is not 좋은, but rather just 좋은. 좋은. Moving on, the opposite of 좋다 is 나쁘다, to be bad. 나쁘다. 나쁜. And finally, 행복하다. To be happy. 행복하다. 행복한. Great! Now all of these adjectives have been put into their adjective form and are ready to be put in front of nouns. Feel free to pause here if you want to write anything down, because now we're going to practice putting these words in front of nouns. Here are the adjectives we just went over, but I've put them back into their dictionary form so that you can keep practicing the rules, 좋다, and add ni은 or 은. And then here are some nouns to combine with our adjectives. We've got 집, house or home, 집. 상자, box, 상자. 시계, clock, 시계. 모자, hat, 모자. 영화, movie, 영화. 산, mountain, 산. 건물, building, 건물. 학생, student, 학생. Let's start with big house. 큰 집. Big box. 큰 상자. Expensive clock. 비싼 시계. Cheap clock. 싼 시계. Strange movie. 이상한 영화. Good movie. 좋은 영화. High mountain. 높은 산. Low mountain. 낮은 산. Good student. 좋은 학생. Happy student. 행복한 학생. Bad movie. 나쁜 영화. High building. 높은 건물. Expensive hat. 비싼 모자. And lastly, cheap clock. 싼 시계. Okay, here's a picture of 3 items. I see a 싼 모자. What other items do you see in this picture? Go ahead and pause and say out loud what you see. You might have said 산 시계 or 비싼 상자, or even 이상한 상자. And of course, any other nouns or adjectives are okay too. Okay, here's a picture of my friend and I doing totally normal things around town. Can you name 3 things you see in this picture? For example, I see a 높은 건물. Go ahead and pause and see if you can find at least 1 or 2 other things. You might have said 이상한 모자, 이상한 상자, 높은 건물, 낮은 건물, or 높은 산 in the background here. Or are these 낮은 산? I promise they're 높은 산, but in this picture they do look like 낮은 산. And of course, any other items you might have said are okay too. Okay, lots of 높은 items in this picture. Pause and say what you see. I see a 높은 건물, some 높은 산, and if you know the word for tree, there's also many 높은 나무, at least compared to our friend Francine here. And our final perfectly normal picture. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of 이상한 모자. That's not how you use a 상자, Francine. Okay, now the final thing I want to do is make some full sentences. What if we wanted to say, it is a good movie? Let's start with good movie, which is 좋은 영화. We don't need the word a here, and though we could specify it with 그것, I think it's most natural to just leave it out. So now we've got good movie is. What do you think? 좋은 영화예요. 좋은 영화예요. 예요 comes from 이다, which turns into 이에요 and 예요. If you're not familiar with 이다, you might want to go ahead and stop here or check out lessons 1 or 15. Otherwise though, let's move on to it's a tall mountain. And we'll put the 이다 rules up here just in case you need them. And of course, pause if you need more time. 높은 산이에요. It's a cheap clock. 산 시계예요. It's a strange movie. 이상한 영화예요. And finally, he or she is a good student. And don't worry about specifying he or she, so just is good student. 좋은 학생이에요. The final thing I'll mention before the summary is 재미있다 and 맛있다. You might notice that both words contain 있다, to exist, which also often translates to there is, there are, or more indirectly as have or has. 재미 means fun or interest as a noun, and 맛 means flavor or taste. So plus 있다, they translate to the adjectives fun and delicious. 재미있다 and 맛있다 are currently in their dictionary forms, But because 있다 to exist is technically usually considered a verb, we can't follow the adjective rules of adding nian or un. Instead, we'll just drop 다 and add 는 to get 재미있는 and 맛있는. And now they're ready to go in front of nouns, as in 재미있는 책, fun book, 맛있는 음식, delicious food, 재미있는 사람, fun person. These are just 2 exceptions you'll have to memorize, but if you keep studying Korean, you'll hear them quite often, so don't worry about it too much for today. And finally, let's go ahead and sum up everything we've done. When you learn an adjective for the first time, you will either see it in its dictionary form, which will end with 다, or its adjective form, which will end with either 은 or ni은. The dictionary form is used in a sentence like, the table is big, in which it will act like a verb, which is why adjectives are often called descriptive verbs in Korean. We'll go over this use of adjectives very soon, but today we learned how to put an adjective in front of a noun for a sentence like, I bought a big table. In this kind of sentence, we'll use its adjective form. But let's say you learn the dictionary form first. In order to convert an adjective from its dictionary form to its adjective form, you will first drop 다, and then add either ni은 if the stem ends with a vowel, or 은 if the stem ends with a consonant. Because we have a vowel, we will now add ni은 to get 큰. And now we can put 큰 in front of all kinds of nouns, as in 큰 탁자, 큰 나무, 큰 로봇. We then practice making full sentences by adding 이다, and making sentences like 큰 모자예요. It is a big hat. And finally, a small number of adjectives end with 있다, like 재미있다 and 맛있다, in which instead of following the adjective rules we just learned, you will instead drop 다 and then add 는 to get 재미있는, 맛있는. And now we can put them in front of nouns like 재미있는 영화 or 맛있는 음식. Here are all of the words that we covered today. Thanks for being such a 좋은 학생, and I'll see you guys in the next video.